Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ShoutCraft America, and we've got our next set of contestants on the line for you right here. They're going to be talking a little bit about the tournament so far and, of course, what's going on. So, RSVP, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back.
Now, you had a bit of a rough time against Xenocider there. What do you think went wrong?
Well, I mean, of course he played really well, but I don't think I was able to I don't know if it was nerves or I just wasn't really prepared, but I don't think I was able to show what I can do that game or those games.
Okay, well, here's an opportunity to do that against QXC. Now, you were able to take game one pretty convincingly, Kevin, and that was as a result of the Oracle play just flat out falling on its face. Then you did run into a couple of problems in game 2 and 3. Do you want to walk us through how that went down?
Game 2, that build that I've done is usually pretty successful, but most Protosses are kind of dumb, so they try and defend their third, and then the game ends. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter who you are. Like, if you try and defend your third against that, you're just going to die because it's just so much supply so early in the game. And he made a good decision to back up, and at that point, I don't know, my play got a little flustered and didn't really work out. And game 3, I think all in all, I was just kind of taken aback by how passive he plays, because I watched the replays, and there are certain points in the game where it's just like, well, if I just go home and build an army, then I'm at a huge advantage. Like game 3, my third was done, and he hadn't even started his third. I had more SCVs, better economy. Like, it's just a strategic shift.
Yeah, we noticed it was very unusual. We were trying to dissect it, and we came to this conclusion that, I mean, the number of observers that States builds is very out of the ordinary. It leaves open some windows for harass, and then, of course, as you were saying, that later third would have given you an advantage there. But everyone, it seems, was caught out by States play, and he advances as first in the group, and you guys are competing, of course, to play against Xenocider. Now, QXC, have you had a chance to play much against RSVP?
No, I actually can't remember the last time we played.
All right, well, this could be very interesting then. It's going to be difficult to predict for either of us. RSVP, do you have any words for QXC going into this matchup?
Just go have fun.
Excellent. And QXC?
I'll see you soon, Xenocider.
All right, guys, thank you very much to your stations, and we will get a chance to see you guys rock it very, very shortly indeed. Now, Frodan, I have no idea what to expect here, because, again, we didn't see... I don't think we saw a bad QXC, but as he said, like, he wasn't really prepared for State's style, which was very, very passive. Now he goes up against RSVP, and we really don't know RSVP's style at all, honestly, because we just haven't seen enough of him.
Yeah, and I would say that RSVP is a very technical Protoss just because of the strategies he tries to execute require very precise timings, and actually, to be honest, it requires really strong execution compared to a passive style, which is kind of like, I'm just going to continue to macro, I'm going to continue to scout and just wait for him to attack into me. A complete shift of ideas. And I think QXC's original series that he played against State, that kind of playstyle would work a lot better against RSVP than against someone like State.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see if RSVP can adapt to it, or indeed whether or not we actually see a shift from QXC. I think maybe, having heard what he said, he will most likely attempt to do the same thing again. Because he doesn't seem to think that it was bad, and I don't disagree with him. He just seems to think that it was the wrong thing to do against State.
Yeah, and it's really funny that he even brought up talking about taking a faster third and, you know, being a little bit more defensive and letting State make the first move. And in Protoss versus Terran, it's always the attacker that has a little bit of a harder time to go into it. You know, it's hard for Protoss to attack into EMPs and positioned Vikings, or even vice versa. It's hard for Terran to attack into well-positioned Storms as well as Colossus that can be anchored by the Zealots. So all this really depends upon how QXC is able to adjust to his opponent. I want to see if RSVP is going to play a little bit more straight up instead of a little bit more tricky, though, because last time we saw him, he just kept doing really interesting, devious builds.
Yes. I want to see devious, I really do, and I also want to see smart play from QXC, because of course he is very, very good at that. But we are ready to kick it off. It's going to be on Acolyte Wastes, and here we are. Well, let's see how this one goes. I'm intrigued. Will we see the QXC that we know and love, or will RSVP be able to pull out a surprise here? We'll find out as we go into this game. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Acolyte Wastes. Welcome to lag, which is apparently being caused by Crass. What's Crass doing in here, actually? That's a bit weird.
Well,
Crass is a European player. Yeah, I guess Craft is a caster now. Okay, good to know. Yeah, NRS is that's a new Rosoft.
Seems to be the new trend.
Yeah, I don't really blame them considering. Anyway, Acolyte Waste, northwest position in the red trunks, playing Terran. It is the one and only
Complexity QXC
versus his opponent to the southeast position, who has a lot to prove here, I think. This could be a really nice breakout tournament for him, but his performance against Xenocider was not up to scratch. Let's see if he can improve from here. He is
RSVP.
Now, RSVP, last time we were on this map, went for a Dark Templar drop. That was happening earlier in the day, so if you're tuning in from WCS Europe, because I know it's about to wrap up, RSVP played against Xenocider, tried to go for a hidden Dark Templar shrine around the 12 o'clock position, and then consequently was not able to do much damage because Xenocider had an early engineering bay. Now, QXC is really good against those styles, but I also want to emphasize that if you don't do damage with a build like that, you can still follow up really well. You just have to not commit with the DTs, and RSVP has to be a little bit quicker. We were talking about his response time, not just to drops, but even with his Warp Prism. If you see Marines running to your Warp Prism, get the hell out of there. Save that Warp Prism, because that's the only thing stopping Terran from hesitating and turning back as opposed to pushing your base.
very, very true. Now, what I like here from QXC is the 12 gas. We may very well see that Reaper that we haven't seen this entire series so far, and it gives him so many aggressive options potentially against a player like RSVP. So, definite change up here from QXC that went command center first every... Oh, what? What? RSVP drops a pylon to prevent the complete wall off. That I have no idea why you would do that, but it was funky regardless.
He doesn't want to lose the probe, man.
Yeah.
Every single probe is very precious in the sight of RSVP.
Yeah, I guess so. The RSVP can...
This is nice, though. He's going for second barracks.
Sneaky. Really sneaky.
Like, what makes it so sneaky, TB, is that it's after the probe is already scouted, and he thinks he knows exactly what he's going to do. This is a very nice mind game set up by QXC.
Yeah, and that pylon was a really odd thing, I suppose, but it was a neat trick, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't obviously going to be turned into anything. Regardless, very well could see double Reaper play here. You can certainly do that on one base, and it can be pretty effective to do significant damage to Protoss, but once you start to get a couple of Stalkers out, you're not going to do a huge amount with it. I have to wonder if we will see something thrown down on either of these barracks after this Reaper comes out.
Yeah, and the magic number, in my opinion, is 3, because 3 Reapers can just completely destroy one Stalker, and you should be able to get 3 by the time the second one comes out and really pick your opponent apart, especially considering that RSVP also skipped his first Zealot, so he doesn't have as much tanking damage as he can as possible. Now, QXC didn't do anything like start a bunker next to the Nexus, because that could also just give away his strategy completely, so I like that QXC is completely masking what he wants to do. Of course, with double Barracks Reapers, you can still expand, it's just that your gas expenditures are all dedicated to this. So if QXC isn't able to do too much damage, he is going to suffer a little bit in the mid game because of it.
Yeah, I like the fact that he's showing 2 Reapers here, and he may poke him with the 2 Reapers and say, yeah, I got 2 Reapers. What, of course, is going to be surprising is 4. Now, this SCV is most likely going to try and put down a bunker, but 2 Reapers, of course, versus 2 Stalkers with the SCV in there is a difficult prospect indeed. That SCV is definitely dead, so we're not going to be seeing a bunker coming in, but that has done significant damage to those Stalkers. 4 Reapers can kill, I think, those 2 Stalkers, considering the amount of damage that was done there, but if he lets the shields regenerate, that's not going to happen. But he's going to go in just before the shields really start to kick in again. Focus fire on this. That was definitely not what RSVP was expecting. Down goes 1 Stalker, second one going down as well here.
Uh-oh, this is already starting to snowball a little bit out of control, because these 4 Reapers can pretty much almost collectively 2-shot the probe, and that's just going to make RSVP unable to mine down the lower ground. This is a very good decision from RSVP to just pull his probes immediately from the natural base.
Yeah, there's going to be enough Stalkers. I mean, once there's 3 Stalkers on the map, that should be fine, but QXC is going to deny mining, which is great because his slightly later command center is actually now something that's putting him ahead, simply because of those Reapers. He's now going to deploy a Widow Mine, and he's bringing the Starport into play as well. Completely different style from QXC this time.
Maybe QXC was listening to the other series cast saying how he didn't see any Reapers or Widow Mines. In this case, he's making both.
Both of them.
And I like the early one just because, again, RSVP plays a little bit peculiar, relatively speaking. You can see that he went from 1-gate robo into a second gate.
Yeah.
Now, you can kind of argue that that's weird because the opening from RSVP made him uncomfortable. He doesn't have as much minerals as normal. But still, it's just a little bit different than what we're used to. And now QXC is really trying to move in to see if he can punish his opponent.
He's got to be careful. I mean, even though the Reapers are not that useful later on in the game, losing all 4 of them would be pretty ugly. But the amount of mining time is already forcing his opponent to lose, and the amount of probes he's killing here as well is really, really nice. He's gonna lose that Reaper. Now it's probably about time to get out. But, no, I mean, he's turned this... Yeah, there we go. Now he's gonna get shut down. But he's turned this into something pretty cool. He's bringing a Widow Mine forward, actually. It's slightly... oh, no, he's gonna eat it. There we go. It's gonna kill Stalker immediately. Now there's Marines following this up. This is really crazy stuff, like nice aggressive play here by QXC. He's going to push forward with naked Marines with a Widow Mine in support, thinking, yeah, I've done enough damage to slow down my opponent enough. The problem is there's going to be a Photon Overcharge.
It's so interesting, too, just because QXC doesn't have a medevac. Normally this kind of poke comes with a medevac, but because of those early Reapers, he's not able to be as aggressive. The Widow Mine gets a shot off anyways, although QXC does snipe the Observer, so now the Widow Mine cannot be killed any longer. This is just such an interesting position that RSVP is probably not used to being in, because right now he has almost nothing. He's got he's got a couple Stalkers and a Mothership Core and an Observer to fight off this Marine Widow Mine army. The first medevac's also going to be rallied in soon too,
nice
to help transport it.
RSVP takes out the Widow Mine, which is very, very good indeed, forcing QXC back. This kind of soft contain method here by QXC, which can snowball into something really nasty if it keeps going, because medevacs will be added into the mix. The thing is, this is the latest stim in human history, so we're going to see stim pack finishing like at about the 11-minute mark, which is crazy, crazy late. But it does give aggressive options, because as you said, such a small army from RSVP, so he can't really defend 2 places at once.
Ooh, RSVP is also sending his lone Observer to his opponent's base, at least towards it. He's going to have to recall it soon if he wants to deal with his Widow Mine, unless he has some other planet to immediately kill it off. QT is going to drop into the main while poking into the natural. How will RSVP respond?
Well, he's certainly not going to be able to Photon Overcharge. He has no actual energy to make that happen, so damage is definitely being done. QXC, of course, needs to focus, because otherwise he will lose those Marines to the Stalker. The attack in the natural has been pushed back now. The amount of economic damage that's been done... Oh, that was... This is the unfortunate problem with Widow Mines. They have a tendency of doing that. This push isn't going to work either. QXC is going to be thrown back here, but the Widow Mine actually kind of... Oh, he almost got the Stalker there. Killed off the chance of those Marines really doing too much more. But it has wasted so much mining time. It's ridiculous. Like, that is the damage that this drop has done.
Yeah, the implied damage from QXC has been quite massive. Although it's not like that harass came cheap.
No.
Nor will I actually think that it would be completely... Or I don't think it's game-changing in the long run, because both players, interestingly enough, have gone for fast third bases in response. Which is, you can see QXC wanted to be really aggressive, get a large economic advantage, take the third, and outproduce his opponent. But I'm really intrigued by RSVP's decision amidst all the harass to say, I'm going to expand.
Yeah, that's pretty cool when you think about it. With so much mining time lost, it's a great way to compensate if you also know that your opponent dedicated a lot to that attack, and you note, there's like, you know, where was the stim? Where's all these upgrades that you're supposed to have? The follow-up can't be that strong, right? And it's not. You know, it really isn't. There's an Immortal on the way here. There should be enough energy for a Photon Overcharge again. I wonder if QXC has smelled that there's a third base. He's actually angling around in that direction, so maybe.
Yeah, he's scanning, he sees the Observer, but I don't think he's going to be able to pick it off. Oh, he does.
Wow, I'm really surprised that QXC is engaging here, because he's being caught out of position and he's been surrounded. QXC's going to try and get out, but he's going to take a lot of damage here. It seems like, though, he actually had enough Marauders to really smash this. Maybe RSVP slightly overestimating his offensive capability there.
Yeah, now that the Photon Overcharge was used at the third, now QXC can push into the natural. There is an Immortal, but if QXC... Oh, he's going to back off. But at the same time, I can understand where he wanted to go with it. See if he can poke in and do anything in the natural, but the truth is he can't at the moment.
No, not right now. But RSVP is taking a lot of losses in this defense and is now behind in supply in a pretty significant fashion. The Immortal will definitely help, but the Colossus isn't on the field yet, and there is no extended thermal lance. Hellbats are now being added onto the mix. QXC, I think, is just going for a big power play right now, and I think he just wants to kill him before the Colossus count gets too high. Another drop comes in as well, and attempts to do damage. It's been shut down pretty effectively here by RSVP. Didn't get the scouting information on that Robo Bay either. Now QXC swings towards the third base.
Yeah, and this is where RSVP's biggest nightmare has been realized. He can't actually be everywhere. He doesn't have mobility, doesn't have charge or blink, or even a big force of AoE to immediately clear out units quickly. QXC can push into this third while dropping into the main base, but of course his double drop is not being paid attention to, trying to save as much as he can at the third base, but he does lose 1 medevac.
He's got to be a little bit careful. If these drops don't end up being too effective, then RSVP will be right back into this, because he's not that far behind in supply. And I think the Hellbats may very well be the game changer here, but it is really interesting to see that there's no Vikings on the field at all. QXC either doesn't know or doesn't care. He thinks that he's done enough damage to restrict the number of Colossi and slow down Thermal Lance. And he's right. He actually has like a 2-minute window now where he could hit with Hellbats, Marauder, and Marine, and the Colossus wouldn't do that well.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like RSVP is still in an interesting position, because he's going to go for double robotics facility. Double Colossus is pretty effective against well, QXC's really, I guess, lackluster infrastructure to really fight against Colossus tech, because he's been focusing so much on his army. He's even getting Ghost into his composition. I wonder if RSVP, if you can build a nice 4 to 5 Colossus count and just completely surprise QXC and overrun the Terran forces.
Yeah, any possibility of going for that power play whereby you attack without Vikings and you hit while there's about 2 Colossus without Thermal Lance is rapidly disappearing, and QXC I don't think is going to be able to hit that window. So you're absolutely right. If it ends up being double Colossi, which it looks like it is, I mean, he is adding on a Templar Archives, but double Colossi production would really catch his opponent completely off guard here. RSVP is actually building Observers right now because he only has 1, and also building a Warp Prism, which is unfortunate. You know, if he got 4 Colossus out and this army hit that, oh man, it would be like running a tiny little car into a giant stone wall.
That's a vivid analogy, and I couldn't agree more. It's just going to be really tough for him to break through his opponent, unless you're driving the bitter truck, in which case you're going to be just fine.
Well, I'll tell you, this is definitely not the bitter truck right now, and I don't know how much mileage QXC is going to get out of it.
This is the Frodan Smart Car. This is what it is right now.
Yeah. The Frodan Smart Car, absolutely fantastic for getting into very narrow parking spots. Not so good against stone walls. Kind of a
That's
hard
right,
counter.
man. I'm more of a finesse. Ben's more of a power player. QXT is going to try to drop into this third base of RSVP, see if he can poke around and force the units out of position, maybe catch some units with EMPs if they're disorganized. And RSVP has to be a little cautious because this is a very hard spot to be in, but looks like he's paying close attention right now.
Goes to the front as well. Ugly position for QXC to be in. His Hellbats are stuck in the middle of that composition, which is not going to work out that well at all. But now the Zealots are charging to their fiery deaths, and RSVP's meat shield melts very, very quickly. There might be enough Colossus, though. The Viking count is definitely not large enough here. But the Stim comes forward. He tries to make his way around, picks off another Stalker. Down goes 1 Colossus, and QXC might just have enough to break this. It looks like he will, and is now able to take map control here. Immediately loads up and says, right, time to really throw down.
Yeah, there's really nothing in the main other than 1 cannon, 1 lone form of static defense, while QXC still can threaten a counterattack into the natural. RSVP trying to salvage the situation with a Dark Templar with Warp in to defend, but the supply counts is just so in favor of QXC. The Colossus is dropping, and even if QXC loses his entire army, he has a 4th base to fall back to. His production is so much better than RSVP because RSVP lost so many probes. The situation is looking so good for QXC.
Yeah, this drop is still in the base. There's really no way to stop it. DT's warped in. Again, I like the decision to use the DTs there, forcing scans out, but with 4 bases, it really doesn't matter that much. And QXC is rolling on forward here with the upgrade advantage, about to kick into 3-3, which is going to be devastating, and RSVP knows it. GG, ladies and gentlemen. And the first game in the series goes to QXC.
Very well done by QXC. I really liked his mixture of aggression as well as his positioning for the mid and late game. You can't argue with his game plan. His idea is to keep Protoss always on his toes. You don't know where it is because from the very beginning, he keeps introducing new forms of harass, right? The Reapers, the Widow Mine, Marine Poke, the Widow Mine drop into the actual drops, into having Ghost and Hellbats. It just feels like he was able to apply pressure at all points of the game. And RSVP, did he really have a chance to establish his strategy? I don't think so.
No, I'm not. I think you were probably right in saying that it was going to be a double Colossus play, and it could have worked. The Viking count was pitifully low. There was a lot of Ghosts on the field. Absolutely, that could have worked. The problem was he didn't have the chance to get the Colossus can up. Think about 4 Colossi in that fight versus 2. Think about how different a fight that would have been. QXC would have lost that fight, and then the momentum would have gone in favor of RSVP, but it was too little too late.
Yeah, a little too late, but I can understand where RSVP wanted to go. Just, again, QXC kind of forcing the issue, and that's what we've been kind of hyping, and I'm glad we've been vindicated slightly just because we've been saying QXC likes to be aggressive, he likes to do this, and finally able to execute his plan. I want to see what RSVP is going to bring for game number 2, TotalBiscuit.
Yeah, I am intrigued. It's going to be interesting. I want to see RSVP be able to break out some of those super technical strategies that you've described, but he just hasn't been given the option to do that yet.
Yeah, I think. Well, regardless of it, he has to be a little bit more diligent. I don't know if he can try to be really cute with the pylon block and not be able to diligently scout his opponent. Again, don't trust what you see, especially in high-level StarCraft too.
Yeah. I mean, that pylon block kind of worked against him there. It's like, all right, yeah, that's kind of cute, but it did not do a damn thing. And in fact, he mind-tricked himself there more so than anything else. QXC with a neat trick like that, very, very much indeed. And we'll be going to the next game. We're just going to go straight into it, I think. I don't see any particular reason to hang around. And I am looking forward to seeing how this turns out. Because, again, I do want to see RSVP be able to break out something cool, be able to actually show his stuff here. But if QXC keeps playing like that, that is simply not going to be an option for RSVP.
Yep. Now, the RSVP has chosen Whirlwind. Whirlwind is, again, a map that Protoss players are kind of favoring if they like to be defensive. But RSVP, let's see what he has in store. He's kind of showed us all kinds of tech choices. He's shown us the Twilight tech. He's shown us the Robo tech. Haven't seen too much of Stargate play, although I really feel like Stargate play requires very high amounts of APM and almost no mistakes can be made. And RSVP shown that he has a pretty good tactical mind, but sometimes his control is a little bit on the sloppy side.
Well, this is what we get for trying to go straight into Game 2 with bare minimum downtime. QXC and one of our casters are currently timing out of the lobby, which is wonderful. It's like, nope, you're going to have a break. You're going to listen to music regardless. So, folks, we're going to go to a quick break while we reset up the lobby. We will be right back. Game 2, QXC versus RSVP coming your way. Sorry about the delay, folks. We actually had QXC drop twice from the lobby, which is very strange. A couple of BattleNet problems here and there, but hey, those are the pile of issues that we've had today, right?
Yeah, either that or he just really doesn't want to play on Whirlwind. All right, QXC, we get the point.
Oh man. Okay, so game 2 is going to be on Whirlwind. QXC showing dominant performance against RSVP. A couple of neat little tricks that RSVP showed, but unfortunately they ended up getting screwed over, really. The idea of saving the probe with the pylon was nice, but it actually resulted in him not seeing a little trick from QXC and not really scouting that double Reaper play, which did do damage. A lot of damage. It forced a lot of lost mining time, and it also gave very nice scouting information there to QXC. Oh well. Let's see what RSVP can do on this map, whether QXC will go command center first again, as we've seen from him, or actually play the same heavy gas style. I mean, I can't imagine he would go 12 gas on Whirlwind. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think command center first is almost it's not guaranteed, but it's just such an easy
strong.
give. Yeah, it's such a good thing just because all spawn positions are possible on Whirlwind, so it's a little bit tougher for Terran to get away with doing an early Reaper, and you go 12-12 specifically so that you can have Reapers 7 to 10 seconds quicker, and that's negated by the long distance and the fact that it's a 4-player map.
Exactly, yeah. That would be kind of embarrassing. The Reapers come along and they find it's the wrong place. Like, well, might as well make the most of it. One way or the other, we'll see what QXC breaks out, because we did see some really interesting and cool play, I think, from QXC in that game.
Yeah, QXC, I think if he can keep on this aggression, I don't think RSVP is prepared to keep up. We've been seeing RSVP crumble when it gets to 2-3 spots he has to pay attention to.
Yeah, well, let's see how it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy in the red trunks playing Terran, he is
Complexity QXC.
And he's spawned to the southeast position. His opponent to the southwest in the blue trunks playing Protoss, it is
RSVP.
So RCP, let's see what he's got in store for us. He's been the one that's been under a lot of question. People don't know much about him. He's kind of this guy that's stepped away from the scene for about a year.
Yep.
I looked at some of his track records. There's not much really here from RSVP. Some of his most recent matches date back to 2011.
Yep.
So his stay as a pro isn't very high, but if you ever look at the forums, he's always there contributing ideas, especially the help a Protoss thread. He's very active. And this guy definitely has good theory. Just that we haven't been able to see his execution yet match that head knowledge.
No, we have not. And QXC is most assuredly going command center first here. He does not have a barracks or anything else, so we'll be seeing that from him momentarily. Most likely he will do it on the low ground because there's really no risk otherwise. You know, there is a risk, that's kind of a lie, but you know, it is safe enough to justify that risk.
I completely agree, and I think as a result, if you can kind of predict Terran will do that, then that's why I really encourage Protoss players to they don't often get to Nexus first, and Whirlwind's a great map to do that. But I'll be saying that all day. I'm pretty sure just because I don't think any Protoss will do it so far.
No,
RSVP.
No, happen.
Yeah, RSVP is taking one gas, so I want to point out that he only has 2 probes on it. So he's doing something very specific to TotalBiscuit. Kind of like we were saying, it's very technical.
Yeah, I have to wonder what that is. I mean, it's got to be some kind of very specific timing that requires some very specific amount of gas. It you know, could very well be some tech, but with 2 in gas, I mean, you could throw down a bunch of gateways. You could start to get a little bit aggressive. It's hard to say until we get to see a little bit more of this play. We don't want to assume that this is a mistake. A player of RSVP's level generally doesn't make that kind of error, but I have to wonder what it's going to turn into.
I think it's going to be for a faster Nexus. Yeah, in fact, he's moving out right now with 400 minerals, so
there we go.
Really actually kind of a clever way to do it because I think you can still afford a mothership core really quickly. In fact, I like this. I kind of like this. You can squeeze out a Stalker if you need to, but you also have enough gas so that way the mothership core can get out. That's actually that's nifty.
Yeah. Follows it up there and ends up getting those extra minerals just a little bit quicker. That's cool. Yeah, it's nice to see that. I mean, you were talking about him being a technical player, and there's a great example of just those smaller things which allow you to tighten your play up.
Yep. Meanwhile, QXC, we've seen it a couple times throughout the day. Double barracks follow up with the command center. Is he going to go 3rd barracks before 2nd gas, or vice versa? I want to also emphasize that on these spawn positions, it's a little bit trickier for Protoss to establish that 3rd base because your options are not good.
No.
Either way, it's just kind of in the path of Terran to just run over you with Medivacs and Bio, or just straight up push with the SUV pull when you have like 180 supply, which I don't like seeing, but I have to admit it's pretty good.
Yeah, it seems to work pretty well. You can do enough damage to kind of justify it, and then you can back it up with your triple CC production and the mules in the background, so it seems to work pretty well. But you're absolutely right about the spawn position. It's like, if you take it here, then, as you said, you're in the path of the Terran Juggernaut. If you take it over here, then defending against drop play and double-pronged attacks is extremely difficult.
Yeah, so we'll see if RSVP can recognize that and maybe even change it up with a 2-base push of some sorts. I do think that Colossus pushes are very good still in the metagame. A lot of, I want to say Wooj and Star Protoss is like Free was doing it a lot. SOS does it sometimes on occasion. I think it's really good to keep Terran accountable just because, again, they like playing, Terrans like to play greedy. That's always been a hallmark of a good Terran player, knowing how to balance their greed. And immediately scans and sees a really quick robo from RSVP. QXC still has to follow it up, though, because one robo after one gate could mean a world of possibilities.
Yes, it could. It could very well. So we're going to see a 2nd observer put out here from RSVP. Still no 2nd, 3rd, or 4th gateways being added on. It's generally extremely unusual to see anyone take up higher than that without adding on a couple of gateways, but we are going to see 1 gate Colossus right in here. That is really, really interesting. He's obviously going to have to throw down more gateways after this, but yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw straight up 1 gate into Colossus tech.
Yeah, it's not very common because it's not very safe.
No.
Even if you have enough units, because for a point of reference, a Widow Mine drop comes around 645.
Yeah. And
so RSVP would have to deal with a Widow Mines and Marine drop potentially with 3 Stalkers and a Mothership Core, and you might have Photon Overcharge in time. I mean, RSVP just hit the 100 energy mark, so it's going to be a little tricky. It's greedy, that's for sure. Especially considering that RSVP also sent his first observer to his opponent's base.
Exactly.
But he also did scout a quick command center from QXC, so I think he's calculated the risk and he knows that he can get away with this. But for Protoss players who are watching and saying, I want to do this build, be very careful because you could easily just get completely decimated by a Widow Mind drop.
That's very, very true. Thankfully, QXE doesn't seem to be in the mood for Widow Mind drops today. He is now rolling out for a poke with Stim and Combat Shield. And this is, once again, without Medivacs. We have seen this quite a bit. Now, is that the factory just coming down, really, on 8 minutes 40? I guess it is. I thought, is that a second factory? That's a bit weird. But no, it is the factory. The factory which is going to give him that tech. This is going to be the late, really, really late Medivacs here. Nice scan. Going to pick off the Observer here as well. And the Colossus isn't out yet, but when this Colossus does come out, I think QXE is rapidly going to feel the pain. But the question is, can QXE actually do damage before that happens? He might be able to. Down goes the Nexus Cannon. The Colossus is now going to come on the field here. I don't know. I think QXE is about to get a nasty shock.
Yeah, the Colossus is now out.
Hello.
The force field's kind of trapped the units, although the Colossus is still pretty vulnerable. QXE is not necessarily going to chase it and separate his units, or will he?
He's... Oh, he gets it! He gets it! Oh, that was so close. That really shouldn't have happened. That one last shell took it out. That's actually really big. QXE continuing to apply pressure, but the benefit of this one-gate Colossus, this ridiculously early Colossus, has kind of been negated. Yes, he did defend. I mean, that's kind of, to RSVP's credit, you can say he did defend, but he lost more than his opponent there. There weren't even any Medivacs in that push. That was not a big investment from QXE.
Yeah, this is the appropriate time where you can type "worth it" in the chat, and no one would be mad, except the Protoss player, at himself, that is. Just because it is worth it in this scenario. And QXE, he still has option to just follow it up, because RSVP, he's playing greedy again, saying he's going to go for Tempo Archives. It was a Colossus fake, but it's not really a fake anymore. This is kind of a just complete different tech choice.
Yeah, and it's not much of a fake anyway, really, when you think about it. You sacrifice so much to get to that tech, and then you just don't use it. I don't figure that to be a particularly good way of doing things, but I could be very much mistaken. So, QXE, he kills the Colossus, and he's done damage, but the economy of RSVP is still fine. The thing is that QXE is now taking his third. So, this is the kind of time when RSVP doesn't have a big army, doesn't really have the right kind of tech, and is thinking, is there a timing that I can execute against the Terran player that will actually do damage, or do I have to sit defensively? Because if I do, I let QXE get his third base up uncontested.
That's right, QXE's third base, I mean, I don't really think RSVP can counter push right now. He's even dropping a forge, indicating he wants to go for upgrade style. Yeah. So he's all indications show that he wants to just keep playing. Yeah, the third Nexus starts for RSVP. Can he hold on to it though? He's going to need a really tight grip if he's going to want to defend against the potential that QXE has, because he still has a very sizable amount of bio.
I see no way of him defending his third base here. He only has 2 Templar. He's only got 1 Sentry. This Nexus just get cancels immediately. I was going to say, there's no way that's getting up there. Now he's going to drop. And RSVP, of course, sees that that's the logical choice for QXE here. So you will be able to clean this up. He's going to try and pressure the Natural as well. Where's the Mothership Core? We've got a bit of stack defense here, which will give him a couple of extra seconds. Mothership Core actually does not have enough energy. Storm comes down, though, and QXE is forced backwards. But this drop in the main base is still kind of going on. Has done some damage, killed an Immortal as well.
Yep, it's done a little bit, but the biggest outlying factor is the denied third, the expenditure of energy as well. High Templars had to storm in order to do something. RSVP isn't in a good position to counterattack, while QXE's third base, it's sitting pretty.
Yeah, QXE tries to trick his opponent there and is able to take out several Stalkers. He will most likely lose these units before they can really do anything, but I don't know, he's kiting well here. He doesn't really have anything else to focus on. His Macro in the background as well, getting Ghosts into play. These Marauders will eventually die, but they have done a reasonable amount of damage. Losing the Medevac was unfortunate. I think he could have gone out with that, but there you go. Another scan goes down. This is a weird game, but there's no question that QXE's ahead with that third base up.
Yeah, I think the scan also puts a little bit more fear into RSVP. Is he going to drop again? Do I have to be more defensive? Do I have to spread my units out, or can I keep them all, cumulated between the Natural and the third base? Meanwhile, QXE's built up a sizable force. He's incorporating Ghosts. He also is getting Hellbats into his composition. His upgrades aren't as good as they could be, but granted, it's not like RSVP has been pushing out upgrades either. He's been frantically trying to get everything back at home.
Yeah, I mean, he's been able to get +2 ground armor, which will definitely be helpful, but the thing is, this is a Marauder-heavy composition. It's not a Marine-heavy composition, so that plus armor is actually not going to help him as much as you might think. And as a direct result, we can see a sizable, scary army here from QXE. This is not really going to hit at any particular timing. The upgrades are very much still on the way, but once he incorporates Hellbats into this, which could take a while because those Hellbats are going to have to get there first. He may even choose just to drop them. Feedback goes down, takes out a Ghost, and a little quick stim here by QXE to go forward. There's going to be a Zealot run by. It's actually going to spot the 4th base if RSVP actually decides to react to that. Currently, QXE is posturing in the middle of the map right now.
Yeah, and really nice movements from QXE, or read rather from QXE, to see the movement of the Zealots and react to it in time. Whoa, 5 medevacs seems to be. It seems Doomdrop seems to be the secret recipe, secret ingredient for the recipe. Use your words, Frodan. It's been very effective thus far. RSVP is going to be pulled really far out of position. This gives QXE a small window because he can also just choose not to drop into the main.
Ooh, feedback shuts down one. Always nice to see there, but he wasn't able to do anything else with it. Colossus now moves into play. There's enough units to repulse the attack on the 3rd base, so this is being held up pretty well here by RSVP, but as you said, he's having to dedicate a lot to it. Another feedback goes down. Isn't able to finish off those medevacs. It would have been lovely if he could, but that is not going to happen. QXE now arcing his way around to the natural right now. There is a bunch of Zealots that are going to get shut down as they move towards QXE's 3rd base, and it's going to be one medevac that almost went down, but Concussive Shell is the savior of the day here. That was cleaned up. So, you know, not the most effective drop ever, certainly. QXE actually is now not that far ahead of his opponent in terms of army supply.
Yeah, you know, RSVP has stabilized a considerable amount. He has 4 Templars with a lot of energy. He's still got a couple Colossus. He also has very decent upgrades, and his 3rd base is pretty much safe for the meantime. In fact, pretty soon he can be safe enough to take a 4th base if he's able to really control the map a little bit more. And he's getting War Prisms out because I like his Observer coverage. It's very reminiscent of State. It's just covering all angles at which Terran could move. QXE also has not really been building too many Ghosts. He only has 1, and he had a couple get picked off here and there. As soon as he starts incorporating more Ghosts into his army, I think he's going to have a very fearsome army to be faced.
Yeah, I also like the fact that well, I do like the fact and I don't like the fact. This is a comment that I actually made. I think it was during a GSTL game where it was Beyond versus Crank, where Terran late game are getting into this situation where they build too many specialist units, either Ghosts or Vikings, and usually it's both. And as a direct result, they find out that if their Vikings get caught out of position and get killed by a storm or whatever, their army suddenly gets run over because they don't actually have enough meat and actual real firepower within it. That could be a bit of a risk, but I think QXE is balancing the Ghost and Viking count quite nicely right now.
Yeah, and I like that it's really heavily Marauder Hellbat. Marines obviously are great DPS, but they really shouldn't be the emphasis late game. They're just too vulnerable. Unless they start going things like Archons and Zealots, then you kind of need the Marines in order to combat those. Other than that, QXE looks like he's going to start loading up some medevacs for Hellbat drops. He does lose it in the middle of the map, but at the same time he also discovers the attempted 4th base.
Yep, that's a nice little piece of information. It would have been great if he'd been able to actually execute the proper Hellbat drop. But the smaller drop comes in, but there's way too much defense for that to do anything, and that is going to get shut down. A little bit of mining time will be wasted. Perhaps a couple of probes go down, but they're losing the medevac not so great. And this is actually starting to get risky because I've got to say, QXE losing those 2 drops, especially when you're in a 200-200 situation, can be a pretty nasty to have happen.
Yeah, he doesn't have actually that many medevacs. He only has 3. He's trying to remake them, so you don't want to throw them away for nothing. Just because, yeah, it's a little costly gas-wise. You see QXE starting to reach the point where he has a lot of minerals, not a lot of gas. RSVP starting to move out to the middle of the map. 3-3 is about finished, while QXE will have +3, so a little bit of advantage there in RSVP's department. But still, it's all about how well RSVP controls his casters. He's bunching them all up, and a couple EMPs immediately forces RSVP back.
Yeah, that's big. That was a brilliant EMP, actually, by QXE. The entire army got hit by that. The casters at least managed to dodge it, but the Zealots and the Colossus taking big hits there. And RSVP does not want to take a fight now. The shields are far too weak. QXE knows that and is pushing out to gain map control as a direct result here.
Well, I do like that RSVP is also sectioning off some Zealots for run-bys. He still has that pylon also towards the southern parts of the map. Force QXE to spread a little bit more out so he can't get a complete ball up, especially with Hellbats and balls with the Terran army. It's just going to be really tough to deal with. Meanwhile, RSVP also loses his War Prism into the main base, so I don't feel like RSVP is doing the best job harassing, especially since the Zealots are funneling up against the bunker in the third base.
Yeah, the bunker's actually going to go down, but that really is about it. He didn't really do that much damage at all. Scan goes down, and QXC saying, oh, that fourth base looks ripe for the plucking. Zealot run by is going to come into the planetary fortress and get killed. There was a DT in there as well, but that's going to get targeted down quite easily, and now QXC is going to take this fourth base out. I don't feel that, no, that's not going to get defended at all, so that's dead. And now QXC can set up for a potential engagement, or he could just back off.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the wrong choice here, just because, again, so easy to bottle your units up in that ramp, storms and force fields and Colossus. It's every Terran's nightmare, consequently every Protoss' wet dream. Don't make those fantasies come true.
Couple of Dark Templar on the way here as RSVP warps in there, and he's attempting to tear his opponent apart, and he's starting to do a decent job of it as well. QXC starting to have to defend against harassment in multiple places. His worker count is actually starting to go down pretty quickly as the Dark Templar actually hit there, but now we have this big engagement. Storm goes down, doesn't really hit anything. It does keep the Ghosts and the Vikings away here, but QXC is starting to push forward here. Unless, is there another Storm available? There must be, surely.
Two.
Yeah.
There's two on top of the ramp. RSVP lost a lot of energy in the EMPs, but at the same time, QXC lost almost all of his Ghosts. So it's not the caster fight in terms of Protoss versus Terran Army is not that high right now. RSVP is going to try to use feedbacks, but those Ghosts really can't do anything other than snipe and try to shoot this High Templar down. In the end, QXC is still just feeling out his opponent, taking out that fourth base, starving his opponent out of gas, trade armies, make sure that he's going to struggle with rebuilding his infrastructure compared to yours. That's the approach QXC is taking, and he's doing a pretty decent job of it, I feel. I'm
really worried for QXC, though, because all of those Dark Templar drops and the Zealot run-bys did a huge amount of damage while that fight was going on. We saw 36 workers killed. He's down to 38 now, and he doesn't have a bank to fall back on either. QXC's production is stunted. He's not using half of his production facilities because he can't afford to. RSVP, on the other hand, he's reestablished his fourth base. He's got a bit of a bank going, and he still has 72 probes. So if QXC loses his army, I don't see him being able to rebuild it effectively.
No, you're right. I didn't see the run-bys kill so many workers, so I retract my previous statement because I thought QXC would be able to completely handle a remax, but the truth is it's a little bit tough. Just because his units are already damaged, you can see that it's as if his army already got stormed once, and that's discounting the fact that they have to stim in order to engage once more. So QXC sitting in a little bit tougher position. The Hellbat drops along with Bio have arrived to the natural base. RSVP is calling back his entire army. That might be a little excessive.
Yeah, I think so. He really doesn't want to lose Colossus. Here's the thing. You know what I was talking about, the specialist units earlier? This is QXC's prime example here. 9 Ghosts, 13 Vikings. These Vikings are going to be great for a while, but even against 8 Colossus, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be 9 Colossus. There's not a lot of meat in QXC's army, really. Yeah, it's a little tricky, although QXC is still max, and he's got 40 workers, so you can just say that you can have all those specialist units because he has and a small still be okay. Yeah, because he's just got this big stumpy army. It's 160 supply army to 135. Yeah, that's totally true. Little drop comes in, nicely done, and QXC trying to pull his opponent apart again. This drop with the Hellbat is proving to be an absolute pain, and RSVP doesn't really seem to know how to handle this. He is all over the place right now. Production is being taken out. That fourth base dies once again. QXC looking much, much stronger now, and if he's able to bring that big army to bear and actually kill RSVPs, now with that fourth base down, it is going to be hard for RSVP to remax. He does have a bank, so he can warp in pretty quickly, but it's the big costly units like the Colossus. If he ends up losing those, still though, it's 9 Colossus, 9 with +1 shields as well. That's even with 13 Vikings. That's going to take a while to kill. I agree. I think RSVP, if he picks a really good fight, he just crushes the army. It's going to be tough because QXC has a very considerable army size. It's 160 supply to 140. Yeah. If you estimate it. That's insane, but still, AoE really dictates this matchup. And what's kind of sickening about this TotalBiscuit is as they take minutes to prepare the perfect engagement, it can end in 10 seconds. It can. It very much can. These are 2 gigantic, scary armies, both max upgrades, even +2 weapons added in to the Vikings themselves, which is going to be a big deal. Will those Colossus last long enough? Will they be able to inflict enough damage? Can QXC take a concave? Can he get a good arc of fire that will avoid most of that damage? If he gets caught bunched up, he is in serious trouble.
Well, RSVP, he's survived most of the aggression from QXC, and he's now trying to seek a new base. In fact, RSVP is long distance mining. He's even trying to expand to the northern part. We might see an engagement coming up soon. QXC has to be a little bit cautious not to overstep his bounds, at the same time scanning very often to make sure no observers can see where his ghosts are going.
Zealot run by goes through the third base again, looking to do yet more damage. It will be able to. There's some defense, but not enough certainly to stop that. But this is the big army. This is the big fight. RSVP, at least with his Zealots at the front there, but taking several losses already. He was not prepared to take that engagement. That is unfortunate. EMP goes down. A second EMP actually hits the storming target, which is absolutely fantastic there. The Zealots, the run-by is actually kind of finished now, but QXC swings by to what looks like the 5th base here of RSVP. That's going to die pretty much immediately.
Oh, he's going to try to pick off Colossus with this little Shroud of Fog of War.
It takes
this is
2.
a very clever move.
Very nice, very nice. That's now 7 Colossi instead of 9. Huge deal. Didn't really lose many Vikings either, building more Vikings as well. RSVP being pulled out of position here. QXC playing a very tactical, smart game. Gotta be careful, though. He is running into a huge amount of Colossus. Where are the Vikings? The Vikings are not here. Oh, the Vikings all get stormed! The Vikings get stormed to the back. The Stalkers take them out, and suddenly 13 Vikings becomes 0 as QXC gets his forces caught out of position. RSVP seizing the opportunity moves forward.
Has to be careful, though. He's bunched up. The EMPs hit all the high Templars from the storm, and the Concave favors QXC dramatically. He still has a lot of Marauders, although the Colossus Micro is going to push back all of the units. QXC realizes that this is a time where you can strike down the Protoss army before he can remax.
It's huge. It's huge. It's all dead. 92 supply to 140. QXC, after a blunder, losing all of his Vikings, is able to take a great engagement as RSVP gets too impetuous and gets caught out in an awful position. QXC suddenly turning the game around again.
Yeah, that was unreal. I just really thought, man, I've seen that situation so many times where you feel like you have a decisive advantage. You have Colossus, he has no Vikings, but he pushed up too aggressively. Colossus don't even have to attack from the bottom of the ramp. They can go from the left side of that base. It's just a momentary, I guess, excited adrenaline rush that disallows RSVP to make rational decisions and that cost him potentially the game-winning push. Now, RSVP still has a huge bank and he still remade a lot of units, but no one can argue that QXC is not far ahead right now.
No, you definitely can't. RSVP took huge hits, like losing that Colossus army. He's building... I've never seen triple Colossi production. Like, this is how crazy this game has got. He's building 3 Colossi at a time, and the Viking count is back to 11. And I doubt QXC is going to make that same mistake twice and allow all of his Vikings to be stormed and killed. That was miscontrol there. But this is an epic Whirlwind game for the ages. It continues to go on. Another Zealot run-by comes in, followed up by a couple of EMPs, so the bunker's going to kill those very, very quickly indeed. Those +2 shield upgrades, of course, not proving to be very useful as a result of those EMPs, but QXC continues to hold on here. He's got 42 SCVs versus 59 probes. There are DTs being deployed as well. And this is the time when it becomes very difficult to keep track of all of your bases and actually defend everything adequately against run-bys and drops.
I still don't like the idea of just keep sending Zealots to that one base. And even then, if you pick off workers, so what? QXC's army is going to get a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And he still has a significant orbital count. RSVP loses as a Colossus in the middle of the map. You can't just be tossing away those units. RSVP also forced to storm 2 Marauders and a Ghost. That's a great trait considering QXC even killed a High Templar. This is what QXC has been excelling in, his late game arm control compared to RSVP, other than that momentary lapse of his Vikings.
Yeah, and this is not looking good here. Nice snipe again. Another one goes down. The DT is scanned out and eliminated. QXC with a very strong army right here pushing forward. More Zealots are being warped in, but there are 7 Hellbats in this composition. Those Zealots will not last that long against that kind of firepower. More snipes go off. Another Templar killed. Looking for the feedback. Quick feedbacks come in, but snipe versus feedback, this is messy. There goes an attack, but it's on the planetary. It actually might kill it. No, I don't think so. It was pretty close to. Maybe if it was a couple more units, it would have. But RSVP is just kind of throwing units at brick wall now, and QXC is about to be maxed, and this is not looking good for the Protoss. Not at all.
Well, QXC, he's going to pick, I think, the game-winning position here. If he's going to force RSVP to defend this base, while being able to push the top center, that's kind of why I was questioning whether or not he should try to take the top center. RSVP is going to be not mining whatsoever, and if he can force Protoss to take a bad fight, and one more bad fight is all it takes. EMP is on 3-4 of the Templars. I think that's it. QXC can just push in. There's no more room for RSVP to back up. As long as QXC can just deal with the Colossus count, there's no AoE left.
And the Colossus are going down pretty damn rapidly right here. Here comes the Stim, catches the Stalkers at the back of the army there. Very, very dangerous position for RSVP to be in. He is plummeting in supply right now. He just lost his 5th base there up to the top position. QXC is maxed again. EMPs blanket the army. The final engagement comes in. It's looking very unlikely that RSVP will hold that. QXC charges forward, brings his ghosts back out of the way. There's the GG, and QXC sweeps the map, eventually 2-0.
Very cautious, meticulous, absolutely great control from QXC. And I can understand even where he was trying to go with the Viking snipe. It was to pick off Colossus, maybe trying to maneuver around the army, but RSVP set up a perfect trap as well. So I got to applaud RSVP for that. But still, no matter what happened, QXC felt like he had control over the game. There was never a moment where I really felt like, I think he's in trouble, other than the run-bys doing massive SCV damage. But it worked out in his favor because 25, 30 minutes in the game, you don't want to have that many SCVs.
No, you generally do not. And that was some great play from both sides. I mean, I think RSVP demonstrated they can definitely throw punches with the best of them there, but QXC eventually, over the course of a long game, taking better fights, getting better engagements, and being in more places at once. RSVP not really able to keep up with it, and that puts QXC through into a TBT versus Xenocide for our final game. RSVP is unfortunately eliminated 4 games to 0 there. That's unfortunate. It happens. You run into some tough opponents that day. Yeah, you can go 0-4 in your group. But thank you very much to RSVP for competing today and showing us some good games. And the final match will be a TBT between QXC and Xenocide to decide who will get the wonderful prize of facing Kane in the round of 8.
That's right. No one really wants to do that. Of course,
No.
If you're joining us today and you're kind of wondering what happened earlier, State advanced to his group and will be facing off against Hello Kitty in the round of 8, which will be played tomorrow. Is that correct, TotalBiscuit?
You are absolutely right, yeah. We're compressing this tournament because we simply do not have the time. Some people have asked, well, why did you go up against WCSEU? That was not our choice. We unfortunately had to move the tournament around. We were not supposed to have play on a Friday, but as a direct result of clashes and issues with WCS, we have had to jig things around a bit. So we were going to have to take a day of pummeling. That's how it went. We understand that. And of course, Saturday and Sunday's play will hopefully be going uncontested, and that should be really, really fun to watch. The round of 8 is going to be amazing. It's going to be 4 really good best of 5s between 4 amazing players. But, as you said, State advanced convincingly. Xenocide did pretty well, taking out RSVP and then falling to State, who played a phenomenal series of games. And now he has to face up against QXE in a TBT. And TBT is in such a weird place right now in Heart of the Swarm, it's so hard to know who's going to take that.
Every Terran player I talk to is such a love-hate relationship with TVT. Some Terrans love it, some Terrans hate it, and then the next week you ask them, the positions are completely flipped.
Yeah.
And it often has to do with the build orders and even the maps itself. A lot of Terran players feel mech is really good, and then the next day, mech is terrible. And the next day, it's like, Biotank is back, and everyone's like, no, just Bio is back. It really comes down to a clash of styles, what you're comfortable with. In my opinion, TVT, anything can go. And I want to see how Xenocider kind of bounces back to show everybody his TVT, because when he played against Major and WCS Challenger, Major kind of made him look like a chump, but that's not really reflective of Xenocider's skill.
No, I don't think so. We'll be going into the final game of ShoutCraft America Group D. Who will go through to face Kane? Will it be QXC or will it be Xenocider? We'll find out after the break. Don't go anywhere.